Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for today's Regional Stakeholder Conference call regarding river and reservoir operations and response and recovery actions. Today's call will have a basin-wide focus and is intended to provide congressional representatives, tribal and state and local government officials, levee sponsors, and the media from Montana to Missouri an update on the Corps' actions in the basin with regard to river and reservoir operations and support to local communities, states, and the tribes. I am David Clare, and I'll be moderating today's call. These calls are recorded and placed in the Defense Video and Imagery Distribution System. Your participation acknowledges your consent to be recorded. All lines have been placed on mute during this call. When we get to the question and answer period, to unmute your line to ask a question, press *6. Please be aware that the forced mute function does not work on all phones. So if I ask, please use your phone's own mute function to avoid interrupting the call, and please do not place on hold, as this will disrupt the call, causing all to redial into the call. Today's agenda includes Mr. Scott Doomer with the National Weather Service, Mr. Mike Swinson with Northwestern Division, Missouri River Basin Water Management, Mr. John Lahow with the Northwestern Division Chief of Readiness and Contingency Operations, Mr. Matt Krasky with the Omaha District Readiness Branch Chief, Mr. Eric Shoemate with the Kansas City District Chief of Hydrologic Engineering, and Mr. Jed Knieven, Kansas City District Chief of Emergency Management. With that, I'll turn it over to Scott Doomer to start us off with a weather update. Scott, were you able to join us? Moving on, we do not have anybody from the National Weather Service to join the call.
Hey, Dave, this is John Lahow. Just to give him a few more seconds to *6.
Roger. Anyone from the National Weather Service, please *6 to come off mute. We'll hold for 30 seconds, and then we'll move to the Missouri River Reservoir Operations Management. Scott Doomer, have you been able to join us from the National Weather Service? Okay, we'll move on. We'll now hear updates on Missouri River Reservoir Operations from Mr. Mike Swinson at the Missouri River Basin Water Management.
Okay, thanks, and good afternoon. Reservoir system storage is currently 67.9 million acre feet, slightly above the base of the system's exclusive flood control zone. About 28% of the flood control storage remains available to store runoff this summer. Yesterday, we posted an updated short-range forecast, or what is referred to as the 3-week forecast, to our website. Gavin's Point releases remain at 75,000 CFS. The forecast shows holding that release through June and early July to manage reservoir levels and continue evacuating water from the reservoirs. Fort Randall Reservoir is at elevation 1367.4 and is continuing to decline. The reservoir is 2.4 feet above the base of the exclusive flood control zone. Fort Randall releases are currently at 68,000 CFS and are expected to increase to 69 or 70,000 over the next few days. Big Bend releases are currently about 46,000 CFS. Releases will remain near 46 or 47,000 CFS during the next week. Oahe Reservoir is at elevation 1617.2 and is continuing to decline. The reservoir is 0.2 feet above the base of the exclusive flood control zone. Releases from Oahe are currently about 49,000 CFS and will likely remain near that rate through next week. Garrison Reservoir is at elevation 1850.3 and is rising due to runoff from the melting mountain snowpack. The reservoir is 0.3 feet above the base of the exclusive flood control zone. Releases from Garrison have been increasing since last Saturday and are currently at 30,000 CFS. Releases will be increased to 32,000 CFS Friday and then stepped up to 41,000 CFS by the end of next week. Releases will be made from the Garrison Spillway starting Monday, June 17th, due to the higher release schedule and maintenance at the project that is limiting releases from the power plant. Fort Peck Reservoir is at elevation 2245.4, and it is also rising due to runoff from the melting mountain snowpack. The reservoir is 11.4 feet above the base of the annual flood control zone. It is expected to rise into its exclusive flood control zone in about a week and a half. Releases from Fort Peck are currently 9,000 CFS and are expected to remain at that rate next week. We will continue to monitor conditions in the basin and will make any necessary release adjustments as the summer continues to unfold. Thank you. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you for those updates, Mike. Was anybody from the National Weather Service able to join the call? Star 6 to unmute. Okay, we'll now hear updates on basin-wide response and recovery actions from Mr. John Lehow, Chief of Readiness and Contingency Operations with Northwestern Division.
Good afternoon. Dave, can you hear me? This is John.
I can, John.
All right, very good. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our regional call regarding conditions in the Missouri River Basin and USACE's flood recovery efforts. I'm John Lehow, Chief of Readiness and Contingency for the Northwestern Division, representing the Corps of Engineers' activities under Public Law 8499 for flood control and coastal emergencies. Both Omaha and Kansas City districts continue to assess the magnitude of damages and associated repair requirements throughout the basin. These assessments are used to estimate funding requirements and determine if repairs are economically feasible. As the water continues to subside, both districts are moving forward aggressively with their assessments and conducting initial and temporary repairs. More detail will follow from the districts during this update. Under Public Law 8499 authorities, we will continue providing recovery support until all repairs are complete. In conjunction with our repair activities, we remain prepared to assist with additional flood fighting where needed. As was reported last week, we are tracking the disaster relief bill being passed by Congress that would provide funds to support our basin-wide recovery efforts. Our senior leadership is engaging congressional and state leaders on this subject. We are awaiting additional guidance from our headquarters office in Washington, who are actively working this guidance before those funds are available for use. The Corps' Northwestern Division is committed to better communication with the congressional delegations, states, tribes, and stakeholders, and this call is just part of that effort. I'll now turn this back over to Dave Kolaric.
Thanks for those updates, John. We'll now hear updates on emergency management operations and levee updates from Matt Krafsky, Chief of the Readiness Branch with the Omaha District.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Matt Krafsky, Chief of the Readiness Branch with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Omaha District. In addition to all the preliminary damage assessments for each of the affected levees announced in last week's call, with the exception of the Hamburg Ditch 6 levee, we've completed the remaining project information reports as of earlier this week. The final step in the process is the engineering and design and the construction of these repairs. While on the topic of construction, a noteworthy item to mention is yesterday's completion of the initial breach closure on levee L611-614 near Council Bluffs, Iowa. Levee 611-614 was one of the 4 breaches that we had previously noted as priority breach closures. The other 3 remained under construction. Another item of significance this week is the award of a $22.1 million contract to Weston Solutions of West Chester, Pennsylvania for initial breach repairs on the L550 levee system near Watson, Missouri. Within the next week, we are anticipating 2 additional contract awards. The first is for follow-on work to the breach repairs on levee L575 near Percival and Hamburg, Iowa, and the second is for breach closure number 2 on levee system L594 in Fremont County, Iowa. We continue to work diligently despite the challenges associated with significant rainfall and flooding experienced in late May. Work has restarted on each of the sites along the left bank of the Missouri River that were already under construction, and estimated completion dates are as follows. Levee L601 near Bartlett, Iowa, 17 June. levee L575A near Percival, Iowa, 14 June, levee 575B near Hamburg, Iowa, 8 July, and levee L594 in Fremont County, Iowa, 14 June. For regular updates on the repair efforts to flood control structures in the Missouri River Basin, visit the Omaha District System Restoration webpage at https://www.nwo.usace.army.mil and click on the red Levee Status Updates icon on the left side of the page. As a reminder, life safety is our primary focus in our efforts to repair the levee systems, and we continue to work with federal, state, and local emergency management agencies and officials to ensure the public is aware of the continued safety risks associated with the damaged levees. At this time, I will turn the phone back.
Thank you for those updates, Matt. And before we move on, I would like to know if anybody was able to join us with the National Weather Service.
Hi, Dave. This is Scott Toomer.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to go ahead and let you go and give your brief right now.
Sure. So this afternoon, I'll give you a short brief. I'm with the National Weather Service, Missouri Basin River Forecast Center. Currently, we have flooding on the James and Big Sioux Rivers in South Dakota, the North Platte River in Nebraska, the Big Sioux River in Iowa, the Big Blue and Black Vermilion River in Kansas. And in Missouri, we have flooding on the Grand, Waukenda Creek, Osage River, and Sac River, as well as the Mariosa Delta, which is at the confluence of the Marys and Osage Rivers. That particular location continues to be in major flood stage due to the backwater from the Missouri River main stem, as well as the reservoir releases from Lake of the Ozarks. So, and then along the Missouri River itself, we have flooding from Blair, Nebraska, down through the mouth of the river, Missouri River, as it dumps into the Mississippi River, minus Kansas City, with Glasgow and Jefferson City near major flood stage. The next 24 hours, we are expecting isolated scattered thunderstorms. And then Saturday through Thursday, we have more organized activity with possible widespread rain extending from Kansas and southern Nebraska through Missouri and southern Iowa. Up to 5 inches of rain are currently forecast over the southern Osage Basin during this period of time in Missouri, with a wide swath of 3+ inches over the Missouri, Osage, and Missouri tributary rivers downstream of Kansas City. With rivers already at elevated levels, this forecasted rain will cause small rivers to again rise, some above flood stage, and also will slow down the recession on the Missouri River. Thank you, and that concludes my National Weather Service brief.
Thank you for those updates, Scott. We'll now hear updates on Kansas City District Reservoir operations from Mr. Eric Shoemate, Chief of Hydrologic Engineering.
Thank you, Dave. Over the last week, we've really been able to evacuate some stored floodwaters from across our entire area of operation. However, I would want to remind everyone that we still have very little remaining flood control space in the 10 reservoirs located within the lower Kansas Basin and the Osage River basins. Of a little over 9 million acre feet of combined flood storage space in these 10 reservoirs, 83% is occupied. A significant rainfall can push one or more of these reservoirs into surcharge operations. So with that, I will go on to details of the lower Kansas Basin. We have currently Milford Lake, Tuttle Creek, and Perry Lake are all setting between 80 and 81% flood pool occupied. Clinton Lake near Lawrence, Kansas is at 59% flood pool occupied. We've been reducing flows out of these reservoirs over the last few days. Tuttle Creek is currently at 4,000 cubic feet per second and is currently forecast to hold steady at this release, approximately matching inflows. We'll then be monitoring conditions on the Missouri River to resume larger releases. Milford Lake is reduced to 2,000 CFS release today, and is currently forecasted to hold steady at this release over the next few days. Releases from Perry are only at 100 CFS and low flow only from Clinton. Up in the Smoky Hill River, which does drain to the Kansas, but it's farther upstream, Canopolis Reservoir is 51% of its flood pool is occupied, and releases have gone to 4,000 cubic feet per second from that today. In the Osage Basin, the following are reservoir conditions. Pomona Reservoir is fallen to 87% flood pool occupied. Melbourne 82%. Pomona was priorly at 94% just last weekend, and Melbourne has gone down from 90 to 82% from the weekend to today. Hillsdale is holding steady at 85% occupied. Stockton and Palm de Terre are both at 66% of their flood pools occupied, and Truman is 93% of its flood pool is occupied. Today, Truman is releasing 60,000 cubic feet per second. Currently, the Missouri River, as measured at the Herman gauge, has leveled off. That's where our target for releases is targeted at, and it does indicate that our releases have made it down to the Missouri River at Herman, and it's holding steady as we're making these releases. If the Missouri River resumes declining and the backwater on the Osage River declines, we may increase Truman releases slightly up to 65,000 cubic feet per second. We're monitoring that. That would likely be earliest tomorrow if the space becomes available. Truman has dropped 0.6 of a foot in the past 24-hour period. As we've been moving water out of Truman, this has allowed some of our upstream Osage Basin reservoirs to begin passing water downstream. All 5 of these upstream reservoirs drain directly into Truman Reservoir. Melbourne and Pomona on the Kansas side of the state line in the Osage Basin are combined releasing 6,000 cubic feet per second. We know there are some channel capacity limitations in the area. We have district staff on the ground in the area of Quinamo, Kansas, which is a town downstream of these 2 projects, to document river conditions and make adjustments to releases from these projects if necessary. We're currently only making low flow releases from the Hillsdale, Stockton, and Palm de Terre projects in the Osage Basin. These lakes will not be able to pass water downstream to Truman until more space is made available at Truman Reservoir. Of these 3, Hillsdale will be the first in line to come online with releases whenever the space becomes available. Up near the Kansas City metro area, Smithville Lake continues to release 2,400 CFS and is forecasted to begin declining approximately half a foot a day. With these elevated pools, we have staff on the ground at each of these lakes monitoring them daily, and that some of them still monitoring 24 hours a day. Through this monitoring, we can say that all the Kansas City dams are structurally sound and are performing as designed. That concludes my comments.
Thank you for those updates, Eric. We'll now hear updates on emergency management operations and levee updates from Judd Knieven, our Chief of Emergency Management with the Kansas City District.
Good afternoon. I'm Judd Knieven. Thank you for being with us today. This morning, we changed our EOC operation posture to level 2, partial activation. Our operating hours are 06:30 to 18:30 daily, so 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. daily. We'll maintain that posture through the weekend, and then we will reevaluate our EOC activation level. We can be reached on our 24-hour emergency line at 816-426-6320. Again, that number is 816-426-6320. If after duty hours, if you call us, please leave your number and a short message, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Missouri River navigation remains open to all vessel traffic upstream of Napoleon, Missouri. Kansas City District is working with the U.S. Coast Guard to lift the navigation closer downstream of Napoleon, Missouri, and we expect a notice to be out soon. Over the past several weeks, we have issued over 1 million sandbags, dozens of pumps, and we deployed over a mile of HESCO barrier. No flood fight supplies have been issued in the last several days. The district continues to maintain adequate stocks of flood fight equipment and supplies. Our mobile liaison teams remain postured to provide technical assistance on an as-needed basis. 50 levees have been overtopped and/or overtopped and subsequently breached in the last several weeks. No reports of levees being overtopped or breached have been received since the 7th of June. Many levee systems remain loaded and will be susceptible to damage until water is fully receded from the embankment. Tuesday, we mailed out our request for assistance letters to all sponsors who are active in the Public Law 8499 Rehabilitation and Inspection Program. Requests for assistance are already being received. Since March, we have received a total of 68 requests for levee rehab assistance. Currently, we estimate that the total could rise to somewhere between 80 and 90 requests over the next several weeks. Missouri River stages continue to slowly fall. Dangerous conditions will persist until the river is fully returned within its banks. And any time water is on a levee, it's a dangerous condition. Please make risk-informed decisions. Listen to the guidance provided by your local emergency management officials, police, and emergency response representatives, and the National Weather Service. Safety is no accident. Thank you. This concludes my remarks.
Thank you for those updates, Judd. We'll now move into the question and answer period. I'm going to manage questions based on groups and location. We'll start with congressional, tribal, and state and local governments, levee and drainage districts, then the media. Please wait for your group and state to be called, and remember to hit *6 to unmute your phone. Please be sure to state your name and the organization you represent before asking your question. I will go state by state in alphabetical order, starting with the state of Iowa. Any congressional questions and/or concerns? Tribal, state of Iowa. State and local governments, and levee and drainage districts. Hearing none, I'll move to the state of Kansas. Remember to hit *6 to unmute. Congressional comments or questions? Tribal, state and local governments, and levee and drainage districts. Hearing none, I'll move to the state of Missouri, and please remember to hit *6 to unmute your phone. Congressional comments, questions? The state of Missouri. Tribal, state and local governments, and levee and drainage districts.
This is Joe Gibbs, the Missouri Levee and Drainage District Association. Sometimes there's a limit on repair funds that are available through 8499. Is that amount what, 15,000 or 10,000? I forgot.
Yeah, hey Joe, this is Judd. So damages have to exceed a $15,000 threshold. Anything less than $15,000 is considered normal operation and maintenance.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Joe?
Yes, that's fine. All FEMA stuff is handled a different way. I mean, you're not handling any FEMA stuff, are you?
We are not.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Any other congressional, tribal, state, or local governments and levee drainage districts in the state of Missouri? Any questions or comments? *6 to unmute. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of Montana, the congressional, tribal, state, and local governments, and levee and drainage districts. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of Nebraska. *6 to unmute any congressional, tribal, state, and local governments, and levee and drainage districts. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of North Dakota. Remember to *6 to unmute your phone. Any congressional, tribal, state, and local governments and levee and drainage districts.
This is Laura Ackerman with the North Dakota State Water Commission.
Go ahead.
Hi, my question is, I was wondering if the rain forecast may delay increasing releases out of Garrison.
Laura, yeah, this is Mike Swenson with the Water Management Office. We'll sure look at that if and when the rain falls, but I would not anticipate at this time that would delay our increases in Garrison's releases.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the state of North Dakota? Hearing none, we'll move to the state of South Dakota. Remember to star 6 to unmute. Any congressional, tribal, state, and local government and levee and drainage districts. Questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move to the media. In the state of Iowa, any media on the line that has questions or comments? Star 6 to unmute.
Hi, I'm Ashley Richardson from KTIV. We're based out of Iowa, but this is probably more of a South Dakota question. Was wondering if the releases from Gavin's Point, if you guys have any plans to extend those past June or July.
What I mentioned earlier was that we updated what we call our short range or 3-week forecast. We still have our long-range forecast that was run on June 1st out there, and that shows a continuation of the 75,000 releases from Gavin's Point into July, and then it shows sort of into July and August ramping down the releases to something lower like 55,000. But we'll continue to evaluate that as we move further into June here.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the state of Iowa, media from the state of Iowa? Hearing none, we'll move to the media questions from the state of Kansas. Remember to hit star 6 to unmute. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of Missouri. Media. Star 6 to unmute. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Jeff Haldeman at the News Tribune in Jefferson City. This may be more for Scott than anybody else, but I just was curious. Compared to '93, how long? When we're talking about elevated levels above flood stage, or where we're at right now, which is what 30.5 or so here in Jefferson City. How long did it last before it got down to say the 23-foot level, which is flood stage for us? I mean, is this the longest it's ever stayed at such a high level, or are we able to track that at all?
We would be able to look up the exact numbers, but this is unusually high. However, 1993 was we were at elevated stages for a longer duration. Granted, 1993 really started kicking off more in the month of July and lasted through the month of July all the way until October or so. This storm started back in March, and now we are in mid-June, and we're not expecting to go below flood stage for quite some time. I would have to look at the exact specifics on that. So I would say it's in probably the top 5, definitely top 5, could be in the top 3, but I believe 1993 was a longer duration event.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other media questions from the state of Missouri? Star 6 to unmute, please. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of Montana with media questions. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of Nebraska. Star 6 to unmute your phone, please. Hearing none, we'll move to the state of North Dakota. Any media questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the state of South Dakota with any questions. Star 6 to unmute.
This is Nancy from the World Herald. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nancy, we can.
Thank you. Hey, quick question for the gentleman from the National Weather Service, Scott Doomer. Those heavy rains that you were talking about, will they be enough to stall out the drop up here in Nebraska on the Nebraska-Iowa border. Can they back up the river that much?
It can certainly, depending on where this rain falls right now, it is scheduled or forecast to fall in the southern portion of the Osage Basin. That's the heaviest amounts, with lighter amounts as you go further north. But the accuracy on rainfall forecasts are such that could be translated or shifted up as far as 300 miles northward, which would then therefore give a different result, and what you suggested could actually happen. But as of now, any of the rain projected to fall in Nebraska there will slow the recession, but I don't necessarily would say it will stall it out or anything like that. But that is a possibility.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Do we have any other media with any other questions? Okay, do we have any final questions before we adjourn?
Real briefly, it's Jeff at the News Tribune in Jeff City. Scott, spell your last name, please.
Sure, it's D as in David, U as in uniform, M as in Mike, M as in Mike, E as in Echo, R as in Romeo.
D-U-M-M?
Correct. Mike, yep.
Okay, E-R or R? I couldn't remember.
Echo, Romeo.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, any final questions before we adjourn? We appreciate it.
You know when we'll open the lower river below Napoleon?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm with the navigation community. I'm just trying to get an estimated date on when we may be open for navigation below Napoleon, below mile 330 down the St. Louis area. Does anybody get any expected dates on that yet?
We were actually expecting them to post a bulletin today lifting restrictions, but we have not seen that yet from the Coast Guard. Over.
Okay. I'll get with them then. Appreciate it.
Any final questions before we adjourn? Well, we appreciate your participation today. The Kansas City District hosts this call daily at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time to provide updates for Kansas and Missouri waterways. The Basin-wide update will be held each Thursday at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This concludes our call.